The morning of May 15th started like a dream for Olivia. Sunlight streamed through the windows of her childhood bedroom as her mother zipped up the back of her wedding dress. 6 months of planning had led to this perfect spring day. The weather was just right, not too hot, not too cold. Exactly what Olivia had hoped for when she and Thomas picked the date. "You look beautiful, honey," her mother said, blinking back tears as she adjusted the veil. Olivia's two best friends, Kate and Lily, both bridesmaids in pale blue dresses, nodded in agreement. "Thomas won't know what hit him," Kate said, handing Olivia a small glass of champagne.
"Just one sip for good luck." Olivia smiled but set the glass down.
She'd been feeling queasy lately, wedding nerves, she assumed. What she didn't know then was that those symptoms weren't nerves at all. The small church just outside town had been decorated with white roses and baby's breath. Wooden pews lined with white ribbon and small flower bunches created a picture-perfect aisle for Olivia to walk down. 60 guests, close family and friends, had gathered to witness the moment when Olivia Mitchell would become Olivia Reed. Her father waited at the bottom of the stairs, his eyes widening when he saw his daughter in her wedding dress for the first time. "You're the spitting image of your mother on our wedding day," he said, voice cracking slightly. He offered his arm and Olivia took it, feeling the familiar scratch of his suit jacket against her skin. The drive to the church was filled with excited chatter from Kate and Lily in the back seat. Olivia sat quietly, watching the familiar streets of her hometown pass by. She and Thomas had grown up here, met in high school, dated through college, and now at 27 were finally tying the knot. "Has Thomas texted?" she asked Kate, who was in charge of her phone for the day. Kate checked. "Nothing yet, but you know, guys. He's probably still getting dressed. Rob said they were all set when I texted an hour ago." Rob, Thomas's best man and college roommate, had been tasked with making sure Thomas made it to the church on time and properly dressed. Olivia nodded, pushing away a tiny flicker of worry. Thomas had seemed distant the last few days, distracted almost. She'd chalked it up to pre-wedding stress. When they arrived at the church, Olivia's father helped her from the car, careful not to step on her dress. The wedding planner, a harried-looking woman with a clipboard, rushed over. "You're right on time. Everyone's seated, the music is ready, and—" She stopped, frowning at her phone. "Hold on a moment." Olivia watched as the planner stepped away, speaking in hushed tones. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach. "Dad?" Olivia said, her hand tightening on her father's arm. Before he could answer, the planner returned, her professional smile gone. "Could we step inside for a moment?" "Not the main hall, just the side room." Olivia felt her heart sink. The next few minutes blurred together as they entered the small room off the main entrance where Rob waited, his face pale. He held out an envelope with Olivia's name written on it in Thomas's familiar handwriting. "I'm so sorry," Rob said, not meeting her eyes. "He asked me to give you this." "He's gone, Olivia. He left about an hour ago." The room went silent. Olivia stared at the envelope, not reaching for it. "What do you mean, gone?" her father demanded. Rob looked miserable. "He said he couldn't go through with it. He tried calling Olivia this morning but couldn't reach her." "I didn't have my phone," Olivia said, her voice sounding far away to her own ears. "Kate has it." Kate fumbled in her purse, pulling out Olivia's phone. 3 missed calls from Thomas, all from early that morning. With trembling fingers, Olivia finally took the envelope and tore it open. The note inside was brief. "Olivia, I'm so sorry. I thought I was ready, but I'm not. The thought of being tied down forever. I can't breathe when I think about it. You deserve someone who's sure, someone better than me. Please forgive me someday. Thomas." Olivia read it twice, then handed it to her father without a word. The room started spinning, and Kate quickly guided her to a chair. "What do we do now?" Lily asked, looking between the wedding planner and Olivia's father. What followed was perhaps the most humiliating hour of Olivia's life. Her father, red-faced with anger and embarrassment, went into the main church to announce to the waiting guests that there would be no wedding today. The murmurs of shock and pity echoed through the building. Olivia sat frozen, unable to cry, unable to speak, as people filed past the side room, stealing glances at her through the half-open door. Thomas's parents came in, his mother crying, his father stone-faced with shame. "We had no idea," his mother kept saying. "He never said a word to us about having doubts." By mid-afternoon, the church was empty except for Olivia and her parents. Her mother had dismissed the bridesmaids, promising to call them later. The flowers, the cake at the reception hall, the DJ, all of it canceled with hurried phone calls. "Let's get you home," her mother said gently, helping Olivia to her feet. The white dress that had felt so magical that morning now felt like a costume, heavy and ridiculous. Back in her childhood bedroom, Olivia let her mother help her out of it. She put on sweatpants and an old t-shirt, clothes that felt like her real self, not the bride she'd failed to become. "Do you want to talk about it?" her mother asked, carefully hanging up the wedding dress in its garment bag. Olivia shook her head. What was there to say? The man she'd loved since she was 17 had decided on their wedding day that forever with her was suffocating. 3 years of building a life together, planning a future, all of it meaningless to him. "I think I need to be alone," she said. Her mother nodded, squeezing her hand before leaving the room. As soon as the door closed, Olivia curled up on her bed, waiting for tears that wouldn't come. Instead, there was just a hollow feeling in her chest, like someone had scooped out everything inside her. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, another call from Thomas. She declined it without hesitation. Whatever he had to say now didn't matter. He'd made his choice in the most public, humiliating way possible. As evening fell, Olivia finally left her room, drawn by the smell of her favorite comfort food, her dad's homemade mac and cheese. Her parents sat at the kitchen table, stopping their hushed conversation when she appeared. "You should eat something," her father said, sliding a bowl toward her. Olivia sat down, surprised to find she was actually hungry. The three of them ate in silence for a while. "His mother called," her mother finally said. "Thomas is staying with his cousin in the city. He wanted to know if you'd talk to him." "No," Olivia said firmly. "Not now. Maybe not ever." Her parents exchanged a look but didn't push. That night, lying in bed, Olivia's mind raced through every moment of their relationship, searching for signs she might have missed. Had he always felt trapped? Had she pushed too hard for marriage? The questions exhausted her, but sleep wouldn't come. Around midnight, her phone lit up with a text from Thomas. "Please talk to me. I know I don't deserve it, but please." Olivia turned the phone face down without replying. Whatever his reasons, whatever his excuses, nothing could undo what he'd done. Nothing could erase the memory of standing in that side room, reading his note while 60 people waited for a wedding that wouldn't happen. What Olivia didn't know, couldn't know, was that the nausea she'd been feeling wasn't just stress. The exhaustion wasn't just from planning a wedding. The subtle changes in her body weren't just her imagination. 4 weeks earlier, during their engagement celebration weekend, life had begun. Not just one new life, but 4. A medical rarity was taking shape inside her. Quadruplets, though she wouldn't discover this for months to come. As Olivia finally drifted into a restless sleep, the tiny lives continued their development, unaware of the drama surrounding their beginning, unaware that their father had just walked away, unaware that their mother's life had just been turned upside down in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The next morning, Olivia woke to dozens of messages from friends and family. Everyone wanted to know if she was okay, if there was anything they could do. The town was buzzing with gossip. Some people said Thomas had run off with someone else, others claimed he'd had a nervous breakdown. The truth was simpler and more painful. He just didn't want the life they'd planned together. Olivia's mother brought her tea and toast, sitting on the edge of the bed while Olivia picked at the food. "What happens now?" her mother asked gently. Olivia looked out the window at the sunny day, a day that should have been the first of her honeymoon. "I don't know," she admitted. "I can't stay here forever. I have my job, my apartment." The thought of returning to the apartment she'd shared with Thomas made her stomach turn. All their things, mixed together after 3 years of living as a couple. Photos on the walls, the furniture they'd picked out together, the dishes they'd registered for as an engaged couple. "You can stay here as long as you need," her father said from the doorway. "No rush," Olivia nodded gratefully. She needed time. Time to figure out what her life looked like without Thomas. Time to gather strength to face everyone who knew about her humiliation. Time to rebuild the future she'd thought was so certain. What she didn't know was how dramatically that future would change in the coming months. The abandoned bride would soon face challenges far greater than a called-off wedding. And Thomas Reed. The man who couldn't handle the commitment of marriage would eventually find himself facing something much more binding than wedding vows. Legal responsibility for 4 new lives he never planned to create. 3 months had passed since the wedding that never happened. Olivia had moved back into her small apartment, though she'd asked Thomas to come get his things while she was at work. She couldn't bear to see him, not yet. Her friends had helped her redecorate, painting the walls a soft green instead of the blue Thomas had insisted on, replacing the photos with art prints, making the space fully hers again. Life had settled into a new routine. Weekdays teaching kindergarten, weekends spent either alone or with friends who were careful not to mention Thomas. She'd deleted his number from her phone, though she still knew it by heart. He'd stopped trying to reach her after the first month, which was both a relief and somehow another small heartbreak. It was a Tuesday morning when Olivia first noticed something wasn't right. She'd been feeling off for weeks, tired, queasy in the mornings, her clothes fitting differently. She'd blamed it on stress, on the emotional toll of having her life upended so publicly. But that morning, as she stood in front of her classroom of 5-year-olds, a wave of dizziness hit her so hard she had to grip the edge of her desk. "Ms. Mitchell, are you okay?" one of her students asked, wide-eyed with concern. Olivia managed to smile. "I'm fine, honey. Just a little dizzy. Why don't you all work on your drawings while I sit down for a minute?" By lunchtime, the dizziness had passed, but a nagging worry remained. After school, instead of heading home, she drove to the pharmacy and bought a pregnancy test. It seemed impossible. She and Thomas had always been careful, but she needed to rule it out. In the tiny bathroom of her apartment, Olivia stared at the 2 pink lines with disbelief. She took a second test. 2 pink lines again, then a third, a digital one this time. The word pregnant appeared in the little window, leaving no room for doubt. "This can't be happening," she whispered to her reflection in the mirror. But it was. The next day, Olivia called in sick and made an appointment with her doctor. Dr. Chen had been her physician since college, a kind woman with a no-nonsense approach that Olivia appreciated. "How far along do you think you are?" Dr. Chen asked as Olivia sat on the examination table. "I'm not sure. Maybe 2 months? My last period was," Olivia thought back, "before the wedding. So about 12 weeks, I guess." Dr. Chen nodded, making notes. "Let's do an ultrasound to confirm and see exactly where we are." Olivia lay back on the table, her heart pounding as the doctor spread gel on her stomach and moved the wand across her skin. The room filled with a rapid whooshing sound, a heartbeat but strangely fast and overlapping. Dr. Chen's expression changed, her eyebrows rising as she stared at the screen. "What?" Olivia asked, panic rising in her throat. "Is something wrong?" "Not wrong," Dr. Chen said slowly, still moving the wand. "But definitely unexpected." "Olivia, I'm seeing multiple fetuses here." "Multiple? You mean twins?" "Twins ran in Thomas's family. His mother was a twin." Dr. Chen shook her head, turning the screen so Olivia could see. "Not twins. I'm counting. 1, 2, 3. 4 separate fetuses. You're carrying quadruplets." The room seemed to spin. "That's impossible," Olivia whispered. "Rare, but not impossible," Dr. Chen said gently. "Especially if there's a family history of multiple births. And all 4 heartbeats are strong." Olivia stared at the screen, at the 4 tiny shapes that were growing inside her. 4 babies, 4 tiny humans that she and Thomas had created. 4 lives that were now her responsibility alone. "I can't do this," she said, tears filling her eyes. "I'm alone. The father is—" "He's not in the picture." Dr. Chen put a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to make any decisions today. But I want you to know that this will be a high-risk pregnancy. You'll need specialized care, more frequent appointments, and you should be prepared for the possibility of bed rest in the later stages." Olivia nodded numbly, her mind racing. How could she afford specialized care? How could she manage bed rest when she needed to work? How could she possibly raise 4 babies on her own? The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls and research. Olivia learned that quadruplet pregnancies were extremely rare, about 1 in 700,000 births. She learned about the risks, the complications, the astronomical costs of neonatal intensive care that would likely be needed. She learned that she'd almost certainly need to stop working earlier than a typical pregnancy, possibly much earlier. 1 week after her diagnosis, Olivia sat at her kitchen table with a spreadsheet open on her laptop. Her savings, her health insurance coverage, her leave options from work, none of it was enough. Not even close, her phone rang, startling her. It was Kate. "Hey, how are you feeling?" "You've been so quiet lately." Olivia hesitated. She hadn't told anyone about the pregnancy yet, not even her parents, but the weight of carrying the secret alone was crushing her. "Can you come over?" she asked. "I need to tell you something." An hour later, Kate sat across from Olivia, her mouth open in shock. "Quadruplets? Are you serious?" Olivia nodded, pushing the ultrasound picture across the table. "4 babies, all perfectly healthy so far. Have you told Thomas?" The question hit like a punch to the gut. "No, and I'm not going to." Kate's eyes widened. "Liv, I know what he did was awful, but don't you think he has a right to know?" "A right? He gave up his rights when he left me at the altar." Olivia's voice shook with anger. "He didn't want to be tied down by marriage. You think he wants to be tied to 4 children? No, this is my problem now." Kate reached across the table and took her hand. "This isn't a problem, Liv. These are your children. And you're not alone. You have me, you have your parents, you have friends who love you." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "I'm scared, Kate. I don't know how I'm going to do this." "One day at a time," Kate said firmly. "And the first thing we're going to do is tell your parents. They need to know and they'll want to help." Telling her parents was harder than Olivia had expected. Her mother cried, from shock, from worry, from the realization that she was going to be a grandmother to 4 babies at once. Her father sat in stunned silence for a long moment before asking the question Olivia had been dreading. "Does Thomas know?" Olivia shook her head. "And I don't want him to know." Her father's expression hardened. "Olivia, whatever happened between you two, these children are his responsibility too. Legally and morally. Dad, please. I can't deal with him right now. I need to focus on staying healthy, on figuring out how I'm going to manage this." Her parents exchanged a look she couldn't quite read. "We'll support whatever decision you make," her mother said. "But at some point he's going to find out. This town isn't that big." Her mother's prediction came true sooner than any of them expected. 3 days later, Olivia was at the grocery store when she ran into Beth, Thomas's cousin. Beth's eyes immediately went to Olivia's midsection where a small but noticeable bump was beginning to show. "Oh," Beth said, clearly surprised. Are you?" "Pregnant," Olivia confirmed stiffly. "Yes." Beth's face went through a series of expressions. Shock, calculation, and then something like pity. "Is it?" "It's none of your business," Olivia said, turning away. But she knew the damage was done. Beth would tell Thomas. It was only a matter of time. Sure enough, the next day as Olivia was leaving school, a familiar car was parked in the lot. Thomas was leaning against it, his face unreadable. For a moment, Olivia considered turning around and going back inside. But she straightened her shoulders and kept walking. She would have to face him eventually. "Olivia," he said as she approached. "Can we talk?" "There's nothing to talk about," she said, trying to move past him. He stepped in front of her, his eyes dropping to her stomach. "Beth told me, is it true? Are you pregnant?" Olivia felt a surge of anger. "Yes, and it's none of your concern." "None of my—" Thomas ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache despite everything. "Of course it's my concern. If you're carrying my children, Olivia corrected before she could stop herself. "Quadruplets, actually. But like I said, not your concern." Thomas's face went pale. "Quadruplets? 4 babies? Are you serious?" "Deadly serious. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to get home." "Wait." Thomas grabbed her arm gently. "Olivia, please. I know I hurt you. I know what I did was unforgivable. But this changes everything. Let me help you." Olivia pulled her arm away. "I don't want your help. I don't want anything from you." "You can't do this alone," Thomas insisted. "The medical bills alone, I'll manage," Olivia said, though she had no idea how. "I have family, I have friends." "I don't need you." Thomas's expression hardened. "These are my children too. I have rights." "Rights?" Olivia laughed bitterly. "You gave up your rights when you decided forever with me was too much to handle. Now you want to claim rights to 4 children? No, Thomas, no." She pushed past him and got into her car, hands shaking as she put the key in the ignition. In the rearview mirror, she could see him standing in the parking lot, watching her drive away. That night, as Olivia lay in bed, one hand resting on her growing belly, she felt the first fluttering movements inside her. tiny, barely perceptible, but definitely there. Her anger at Thomas melted away, replaced by a fierce protectiveness for the 4 little lives depending on her. "It's just us," she whispered, "and we're going to be okay." But as she drifted off to sleep, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that Thomas was right about one thing. She couldn't do this alone. Not practically, not financially. Sooner or later, she would have to face that reality. For now, though, she pushed the thought away and focused on the miracle growing inside her. 4 tiny heartbeats, 4 new beginnings, 4 reasons to be stronger than she'd ever been before. By her 6th month of pregnancy, Olivia's life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. Her small body was now home to 4 growing babies, and her once flat stomach had expanded dramatically. Walking had become a waddle, sleeping was nearly impossible, and she'd been forced to take early leave from her teaching job when her doctor insisted on bed rest. "The babies are developing well," Dr. Chen had explained during her last appointment, "but your body is under tremendous strain. Bed rest will help prevent premature labor and give the little ones more time to grow." So here she was, confined to her parents' house where she'd moved when managing stairs in her apartment became too difficult. Her childhood bedroom had been transformed into a makeshift medical space, with a hospital bed, monitoring equipment, and a small refrigerator for her many medications and supplements. Her mother had taken family leave from her job as a bank manager to care for Olivia, and her father rearranged his work schedule to be home in the evenings. The support was a blessing, but Olivia still struggled with feelings of helplessness and guilt. "You don't need to apologize for needing help," her mother said one afternoon as she brought Olivia lunch in bed. "That's what family is for." Olivia picked at her sandwich. "I know, but I feel like I've disrupted everyone's lives. You should be thinking about retirement, not taking care of your pregnant daughter and preparing for 4 newborns. Her mother sat on the edge of the bed. "Listen to me. When you were little, you used to tell everyone you wanted 10 children. 10. Your father and I always knew you'd be a wonderful mother. We just didn't expect all your children to arrive at once." She smiled, patting Olivia's hand. "This isn't how any of us planned things to go, but these babies are a gift. We're going to make it work." Olivia felt tears welling up, something that happened frequently these days. "What would I do without you and Dad?" "Luckily, you'll never have to find out," her mother said, standing up. "Now eat your lunch. Those babies need the nutrition." While Olivia's family had rallied around her, Thomas remained a complicated presence on the periphery of her life. After their confrontation in the school parking lot, he'd started sending weekly emails, awkward, formal messages asking about her health and the babies, offering financial assistance that Olivia continued to refuse. Kate thought she was being stubborn. "I get that you're angry," she said during one of her regular visits, "but those medical bills are piling up. Your insurance doesn't cover half of what you need. Why not take his money?" "Because it comes with strings," Olivia replied. "He's already talking about his rights to the babies. If I start taking his money now, he'll think he can buy his way back into our lives whenever it's convenient for him." Kate sighed. "He's going to be these kids' father whether you like it or not, Liv. Biology doesn't care about what happened at the wedding." Deep down, Olivia knew Kate was right. The reality of raising quadruplets as a single mother was becoming clearer as her due date approached. The medical costs alone were overwhelming, not to mention the practical challenges. 4 cribs, 4 car seats, endless diapers and formula, and the impossible task of caring for 4 newborns simultaneously. But pride and hurt kept her from reaching out to Thomas, even as her financial situation grew more dire. Everything changed when Lily, her other bridesmaid and longtime friend, showed up with an idea. "I want to start an online fundraiser for you," Lily announced, laptop in hand. "We can share your story, explain the medical costs, and ask for help. People love to support mothers in need, especially in unusual situations like yours." Olivia hesitated. "I don't know, Lily. Putting my personal business online for strangers to see." "It doesn't have to include all the details," Lily insisted. "No mention of Thomas or the wedding if you don't want. Just the facts. Local kindergarten teacher expecting quadruplets needs help with medical expenses. I'll handle everything. You won't even have to look at it if you don't want to." Desperate and running out of options, Olivia finally agreed. She expected maybe a few $1,000s from friends and community members. What she didn't expect was for the fundraiser to go viral. It started small. Shares from friends, then friends of friends. But something about Olivia's story struck a chord. A local news station picked it up, doing a short feature on the young teacher preparing for quadruplets. Then a popular parenting blog shared it, and suddenly donations were pouring in from all over the country. $10,000 in 3 days, Lily reported, wide-eyed as she checked the fundraiser page on her phone. People are leaving the sweetest comments too. By the end of the week, the total had climbed to over $30,000. Olivia was overwhelmed by the generosity of strangers. Among the donors, she noticed, was a large anonymous contribution of $5,000. She suspected it was from Thomas but chose not to investigate. The financial relief came just in time. At 30 weeks, still dangerously early but better than the doctors had initially feared, Olivia went into labor. "We can't stop it this time," Dr. Chen said after examining her in the hospital. "These babies are ready to meet the world." What followed was a blur of activity. Olivia was moved to the operating room for an emergency C-section, surrounded by a team of specialists prepared for the complex delivery of quadruplets. Her mother held her hand as the anesthesiologist administered the spinal block. "Everything's going to be fine," her mother whispered, though Olivia could hear the fear behind her reassurance. 45 minutes later, the sound of 4 distinct cries filled the operating room as Olivia's children entered the world one by one. 2 boys and 2 girls, each tiny but remarkably strong for their early arrival. "They're fighters, just like their mother," Dr. Chen said, smiling above her surgical mask as the babies were whisked away to the NICU. Later that evening, still groggy from medication and surgery, Olivia was wheeled to the neonatal intensive care unit to see her children. Each baby lay in a separate incubator, connected to monitors and IV lines, so small they could fit in the palm of an adult's hand. "They're beautiful," Olivia whispered, tears streaming down her face as she reached through the opening in the first incubator to touch her son's tiny hand. His fingers, no bigger than grains of rice, curled around her pinky in a grip that seemed impossibly strong. The NICU nurses helped her understand each baby's condition. All 4 were underweight and needed breathing assistance, but they were doing better than expected for quadruplets born at 30 weeks. "They'll need to stay here for a while," the head nurse explained gently, "at least until they reach what would have been full term, maybe longer depending on how they progress." Olivia nodded, trying to absorb the information through her exhaustion and emotional overwhelm. 4 babies, 4 different medical charts, 4 sets of needs to understand and monitor. The responsibility was staggering. As she was being wheeled back to her room, a nurse stopped her. "There's someone asking to see you," she said. "A man who says he's the baby's father. He's been in the waiting room since you went into surgery. Should I let him in?" Olivia closed her eyes, too tired to feel the anger that had sustained her for months. "Yes," she said finally. "Let him in." Minutes later, Thomas stood awkwardly at the foot of her hospital bed, his face pale with worry. He looked different, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a few strands of gray in his hair that hadn't been there before. "I heard about the fundraiser," he said. "Lily called me when you went into labor. I came as soon as I could." Olivia studied his face, searching for the man she'd once loved enough to marry. "Did you see them?" she asked. Thomas nodded, his eyes filling with tears. "They're incredible, Olivia. So tiny but so perfect." He hesitated. "I know I have no right to ask, but have you named them yet?" She hadn't. In all her preparations, Olivia had avoided the final step of choosing names, as if doing so would make everything too real, too permanent. "No," she admitted. "I thought I had more time. Can I help?" Thomas asked, his voice breaking slightly. "Please? I know I don't deserve it, but they're my children too. I want to be part of their lives. I want to help you raise them." Something in his voice, a note of genuine desperation, of regret, broke through Olivia's defenses. Maybe it was the hormones or the overwhelming events of the day, or simply exhaustion, but she found herself nodding. "Sit down," she said, gesturing to the chair beside her bed. "We have a lot to talk about." Over the next 2 hours, as nurses came and went checking Olivia's vitals, she and Thomas began the complicated process of figuring out what came next. There were no easy answers, no perfect solutions. The hurt and betrayal of the wedding day hadn't disappeared, but facing the reality of 4 premature babies in the NICU put everything in a new perspective. "I'm not promising anything," Olivia said as their conversation wound down. I don't know if I can ever trust you again or if we can ever be what we were. But these children deserve to know their father. Thomas nodded, looking both relieved and terrified. I understand. I'll take whatever role you'll allow me to have. And regardless of anything else, I want to support you financially. No strings attached. As he left, promising to return the next day, Olivia felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of a new understanding. She would never again be the woman who stood abandoned at the altar in her wedding dress. Now she was a mother of 4, and that identity was stronger than anything that had come before. With that thought in her mind, Olivia drifted into sleep, her body beginning the long process of healing while down the hall. 4 tiny new lives fought their own battles to grow stronger each day. The first 3 months after the quadruplets were born passed in a blur of sleepless nights, endless diaper changes and constant worry. Olivia's world shrank to the walls of the NICU, where she spent every possible moment between her own recovery and pumping breast milk for 4 hungry babies. She had finally named them. The boys were Jack and Noah. The girls Lily and Rose. 4 simple names for 4 extraordinary children who fought daily to grow stronger. Each had their own personality already. Jack was the biggest and most demanding. Rose the smallest but fiercest, Noah the calmest, and Lily the one who watched everything with curious eyes. During those long days in the hospital, a fragile truce formed between Olivia and Thomas. He came every evening after work, taking his turn holding each baby while Olivia got a brief chance to shower or nap in the parents' room. They didn't talk much beyond necessary updates about the baby's progress, but his consistent presence surprised her. I didn't think you'd stick around this long, Olivia admitted one evening as they sat side by side in the NICU, each holding 2 sleeping infants. Thomas looked up, his face showing the same exhaustion that Olivia felt down to her bones. I know you still think I'm going to run, he said quietly. I don't blame you. But I'm not going anywhere this time, Olivia didn't respond. Words were easy. Showing up day after day was harder. She'd believe his commitment when she saw it sustained beyond these early weeks. Finally, after nearly 100 days in the hospital, all 4 babies were deemed strong enough to go home. Their homecoming was both joyous and terrifying. Olivia's parents had converted their dining room into a nursery with 4 cribs arranged in a circle. The house was now filled with baby supplies, a mountain of diapers, formula to supplement what Olivia could pump, and clothes so tiny they seemed made for dolls. The reality of caring for quadruplets hit hard that first night. Even with her parents' help and Thomas coming over after work, the logistics were overwhelming. Each baby needed to be fed every 3 hours, which meant the adults took shifts around the clock. By the end of the first week home, everyone was functioning on minimal sleep and maximum coffee. We need more help, Olivia's mother said bluntly one morning as she warmed bottles while Olivia changed Jack. Your father and I aren't as young as we used to be, and you're going to collapse if something doesn't change. Olivia knew she was right but couldn't see a solution. The money from the fundraiser had mostly gone to medical bills, and hiring the kind of full-time help they needed was beyond her means. Thomas contributed financially, but it wasn't enough to cover round-the-clock assistance. That afternoon, as all 4 babies miraculously napped at once, Olivia's phone rang. It was her former principal. I've been thinking about your situation, she said after pleasantries. We have several teachers' aides who would jump at the chance to help with the babies for course credit. They're studying early childhood development, and what better practical experience than quadruplets? We could set up a rotation, they'd get their hours and you'd get extra hands. The offer was a lifeline. Within days, a schedule was arranged with 4 education students, each taking 1 4-hour shift per week. They weren't professionals, but they were eager to learn and brought fresh energy to the house. For the first time since the babies came home, Olivia managed to sleep for 6 consecutive hours. As the babies approached their 6-month milestone, a new tension arose between Olivia and Thomas. Until now, their arrangement had been informal. He visited daily, helped with feedings and care, and contributed money when Olivia allowed it. But as he became more confident in his role as a father, he began to push for something more defined. I want to take the kids to my place sometimes, he said one evening after the babies were asleep. Just for an afternoon at first, maybe work up to overnight visits when they're older. Olivia stiffened. Your place? You mean your bachelor pad with the roommates and the pool table instead of a dining table? I moved, Thomas said. Got my own place closer to your parents' house. 2 bedrooms, one for me, one for the kids. I've set up cribs and everything. The news caught Olivia off guard. You never mentioned this. I wanted to wait until it was ready. Thomas hesitated. Look, I know we're not together, but I want to be a real father to them. That means having them in my home sometimes, not just visiting here. The old hurt and anger resurfaced. You don't get to decide this unilaterally, Thomas. These children exist because you left me at the altar. If you had gone through with the wedding, we'd be raising them together in our own place. But that's not what happened. Thomas's face hardened. I made a terrible mistake and I've apologized 1,000 times. I can't change the past, but I'm here now trying to do right by our children. Doesn't that count for anything? Before Olivia could answer, one of the babies started crying, followed quickly by another. The conversation was shelved as they fell back into the familiar routine of nighttime care, but the issue didn't go away. Thomas became more insistent about formalizing their arrangement, mentioning words like custody and visitation that made Olivia's stomach clench with anxiety. After a particularly heated discussion, he stopped coming over for 2 days, the longest he'd been absent since the babies were born. On the 3rd day, instead of Thomas at the door, there was a courier with legal papers. Olivia's hands shook as she read the document. Thomas was petitioning the court for joint legal custody and set visitation rights. He'd hired an attorney, a good one, based on the letterhead. He's suing me, she told her parents, sinking onto the couch as her mother took the papers. After everything, he's actually taking me to court. Her father's face darkened with anger. I'll call our lawyer in the morning. Don't worry, honey, we won't let him take those babies from you. He doesn't want to take them, Olivia said, the reality of the situation hitting her. He just wants legal recognition as their father, rights I've been refusing to discuss. The first court date was set for the following month. In the meantime, Thomas continued his regular visits, though the atmosphere was now strained and formal. Olivia found herself watching him more closely, looking for signs that this was all about control rather than genuine concern for the children. But all she saw was a man who had grown comfortable changing diapers, who could tell the difference between Jack's hungry cry and Noah's tired one, who sang silly songs to make Rose smile. Olivia hired her own attorney, a kind but straight-talking woman named Diane who specialized in family law. After reviewing the case, Diane didn't mince words. He's going to get some form of custody, she said. He's the biological father. He's been consistently involved since their birth and he's financially stable. The question isn't if, but how much. What does that mean for me? Olivia asked, one eye on the baby monitor where all 4 children napped in their cribs. It means you need to decide what you're willing to accept. Because fighting this all the way will be expensive and painful for everyone. And judges don't look kindly on parents who try to exclude the other parent without good cause. He abandoned me at our wedding, Olivia reminded her. Isn't that good cause? Diane shook her head. He didn't abandon the children. Since finding out about the pregnancy, he's been involved and supportive. That's what the court will focus on. The day of the hearing arrived with a tense kind of inevitability. Olivia's parents stayed home with the babies while she and Thomas sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, their attorneys between them like buffers. Thomas wore a suit she'd never seen before, looking more serious than she could remember. She'd chosen a conservative dress and low heels, her hair pulled back neatly, trying to project the image of a responsible mother. The judge, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, reviewed the case quickly before addressing them directly. Before we proceed, I want to be clear about something, she said, looking between Olivia and Thomas. This courtroom is not about punishing past mistakes or relitigating personal grievances. My only concern is the well-being of 4 6-month-old children who need both their parents. Can we agree on that much? Olivia nodded stiffly. Thomas said, Yes, Your Honor. What followed was a methodical examination of their lives, finances, and involvement with the children. Thomas's attorney presented evidence of his new apartment, his steady job as an IT manager, and his consistent visitation. He also made a point of mentioning Thomas's financial contributions and his willingness to increase child support. When it was Olivia's turn, her attorney emphasized her role as the primary caregiver, the children's young age and need for stability, and the practical challenges of splitting time with quadruplets who had only recently left medical supervision. Throughout the proceedings, Olivia found herself studying Thomas. The man sitting across the courtroom was both familiar and strange to her, the same person who had crushed her heart on their wedding day, but also the father who had spent countless nights helping her soothe 4 crying babies. Could she truly say he didn't deserve a place in their children's lives? As the hearing concluded, the judge announced she would review everything and issue a temporary order by the end of the week, with a follow-up hearing in 6 months to establish a permanent arrangement. Outside the courthouse, Thomas approached Olivia hesitantly. "Can we talk? Without the lawyers?" Part of her wanted to refuse to maintain the wall between them, but she was tired of fighting. 5 minutes. "I need to get back to the babies." They sat on a bench in the courthouse plaza, the spring sunshine warming the air around them. "I never wanted it to come to this," Thomas said. "Going to court, lawyers, all of it. I just want to be their father, Olivia, to be part of their lives in a real way, not just when you allow it." Olivia looked away, watching a pair of birds chase each other across the sky. "You hurt me," she said simply. "More than I thought possible. Every time I look at you, I remember standing in that church reading your note, having to face everyone." "I know," Thomas said quietly, "and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for that. But our children shouldn't pay the price for my mistake." For the first time, Olivia allowed herself to truly consider his perspective. The hurt hadn't disappeared, might never fully heal, but maybe it was time to stop letting it dictate every decision. "What exactly do you want?" she asked. "Shared legal custody, regular visitation that increases as they get older, input on major decisions." Thomas hesitated. "And maybe eventually a chance for us to be friends again. For the kids' sake." As Olivia stood to leave, she found herself saying words she never expected. "Let's see what the judge decides. Then maybe we can talk about finding our own solution, without the lawyers. For the kids' sake." It wasn't forgiveness, wasn't anywhere close to the future they'd once planned together, but it was a starting point, a small crack in the wall that might someday allow something new to grow. 1 year had passed since the courtroom showdown. The quadruplets were now 18 months old, walking, babbling, and developing distinct personalities that amazed Olivia daily. Jack was the adventurous one, always climbing and exploring. Noah was quieter, content to sit and examine toys with intense focus. Rose was fearless and stubborn, while Lily was the peacemaker, offering toys to her siblings when they fussed. Life had settled into a workable routine. The judge's temporary order had evolved into a permanent arrangement after Olivia and Thomas surprised everyone by reaching their own agreement outside of court. Thomas had joint legal custody and regular visitation, taking all 4 children to his apartment every weekend, plus 1 evening during the week. As they grew older and less dependent on Olivia for feeding, his time with them would gradually increase. Olivia had returned to teaching part-time, her principal creating a special position that allowed her to work while the children were with Thomas. Her parents remained a constant support, though they'd begun taking weekend trips occasionally now that the emergency phase of quadruplet care had passed. The arrangement wasn't perfect, but it worked. Co-parenting with the man who had left her at the altar was still sometimes awkward, often challenging, but they had found a way to keep their personal history separate from their responsibilities as parents, until Thomas's announcement changed everything again. It was a Tuesday evening, his regular night to come over and help with dinner and bedtime. The children were already tucked into their cribs, the house finally quiet after the cheerful chaos of the day. Olivia was washing bottles in the kitchen when Thomas cleared his throat. "I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice unusually serious. Olivia's hands stilled in the soapy water. Something in his tone made her stomach tighten with apprehension. "What is it?" "I've been offered a promotion," Thomas said. "A really good one. More money, better benefits, a chance to lead my own team." "That's great," Olivia said cautiously, sensing there was more to the story. "Congratulations." Thomas looked down at his hands. "The job is in Chicago." The words hung in the air between them. Chicago was hundreds of miles away. "A different state entirely. You're moving?" Olivia finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been thinking about it for weeks," Thomas admitted. "It's a huge opportunity, the kind that doesn't come around often. But the kids—" His voice trailed off. "You can't take them," Olivia said immediately, protective instinct flaring. Their whole lives are here, their doctors, their routine, my parents, me. I know that, Thomas said quickly. I would never try to take them from you. But I don't want to be a long-distance father who only sees them on holidays. The old anger stirred inside Olivia. So you're turning down the job? I haven't decided yet. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that still made something twist in Olivia's chest despite everything. That's why I wanted to talk to you first, to see if we could figure out a solution together. Olivia dried her hand slowly, buying time to process this new challenge. Part of her, the part that still remembered the pain of reading his note on their wedding day, wanted to tell him to go, to take the job and send child support checks from Chicago. Another part recognized how much he had grown as a father, how much the children had come to love their weekends with him. What kind of solution are you imagining? She asked finally. I don't know, Thomas admitted. Maybe adjusted visitation where I get them for longer blocks of time but less frequently, or... He hesitated. Or what? Or you and the kids could move to Chicago too. Olivia stared at him in disbelief. You can't be serious. Just hear me out, Thomas said. Chicago has excellent schools, including some specialized early childhood programs that would be perfect for the quads. The company would help with relocation costs. You could find a teaching position. There's always demand for good teachers, and the salary increase would mean I could provide more support. Maybe even get a bigger place where you and the kids could have your own space and I could be nearby. You want us to live together? Olivia asked, confused. Not exactly, Thomas clarified, but close enough that we could share childcare more easily. Maybe apartments in the same building or houses in the same neighborhood. It would make everything simpler. Olivia shook her head, overwhelmed. Thomas, I can't just uproot my entire life, the kids' entire lives, because you got a job offer. My parents are here. My support system is here. I understand that, Thomas said, his voice gentle. And if you say no, I'll turn down the job. The kids come first. I just wanted to put all the options on the table. That night after Thomas left, Olivia lay awake thinking about his proposal. Moving to Chicago seemed impossible, but the alternative, Thomas giving up a career opportunity to stay nearby, carried its own complications. Would he resent her and the children eventually? Would the fragile co-parenting relationship they'd built crumble under that strain? The next morning she called Kate, who had moved to Boston the previous year but remained her closest confidant. He actually suggested you move to Chicago? Kate asked after Olivia explained the situation. Yes, crazy, right? There was a pause on the line. Actually, it's not the craziest thing I've ever heard, Kate said slowly. Think about it. You're both essentially single parents right now, trying to coordinate schedules and split time. That's hard enough in the same town. If he moves away, it gets 10 times harder. So I should upend my whole life because he got a job offer? Olivia countered. Not necessarily, Kate said. But maybe consider whether staying put is really what's best for you and the kids long term. Your parents won't be able to help forever. Teaching jobs exist everywhere, and a fresh start might not be the worst thing. The conversation left Olivia with more questions than answers. Over the next few days, she found herself making mental lists of pros and cons, researching Chicago schools and neighborhoods online after the children were asleep, trying to imagine a life so different from the one she'd planned. A week after his announcement, Thomas came for his regular visit with the quads. He didn't mention the job offer, focusing instead on building block towers with Noah and Jack while Rose and Lily played with stuffed animals nearby. Watching him with the children, patient, attentive, clearly adoring, Olivia felt a familiar pang. This was the father she had always imagined for her children, even if the story of how they got here was nothing like she'd expected. Have you made a decision about Chicago? She asked as they cleaned up toys after the children were in bed. Thomas shook his head. Not yet. I told them I need more time. They understand the situation. Olivia took a deep breath. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I have a counter-proposal. Thomas looked up surprised. I'm listening. I'm not ready to move to Chicago, Olivia said. It's too much too soon. But I'm also not comfortable with you being so far away from the kids. So what are you suggesting? Take the job, Olivia said. Try it for 6 months. Come back every other weekend to see the kids, and we'll use video calls in between. If it works out, if the job is everything you hope and the distance isn't too hard on the children, then we can talk about the possibility of moving. Not promises, just being open to considering it. Thomas's face showed his surprise. You'd really think about moving? Olivia nodded slowly. For the kids. They deserve to have both parents actively involved in their lives, and you've proven that you're committed to them. Thank you, Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. That means more than you know. The 6-month trial period passed more quickly than either of them expected. Thomas flew back every other weekend, arriving Friday night and leaving Sunday evening, cramming as much quality time with the quadruplets as possible into those precious hours. Between visits, he video chatted with them daily, reading bedtime stories through the screen, watching them show off new skills, never missing an important moment. Olivia found herself gradually warming to the idea of Chicago. She joined several online forums for teachers in the area, researching schools and neighborhoods. She even took a weekend trip alone to visit the city, staying in a hotel and exploring areas Thomas had suggested might work for them. What surprised her most during those 6 months was how much she missed Thomas on the weekends he wasn't there. Not romantically, that door felt firmly closed, but as a co-parent, a partner in the monumental task of raising 4 toddlers. They had developed a rhythm, a shorthand, an ability to tag-team the chaos that no one else quite understood. When the 6-month mark arrived, Thomas took a full week off work to come back and help with the children while they discussed next steps. On his second night back after the quads were asleep, they sat at the kitchen table with cups of tea. So, Thomas said. Decision time, Olivia nodded. I've made up my mind. We'll move to Chicago. Thomas's face lit up. Really, you're sure? There are conditions, Olivia continued. We need separate places, but close. I need help finding a good teaching position, and my parents need to be able to visit whenever they want, with us covering the travel costs. Done, and absolutely done, Thomas agreed quickly. I've already been looking at housing options. There's a duplex near my office that would be perfect. 2 separate units with a shared backyard. As they continued discussing logistics, when to move, how to transport 4 toddlers and all their gear across states, what to do about selling or renting her house, Olivia felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. This wasn't the life she had imagined when she'd stood in her wedding dress 2.5 years ago. It was messier, more complicated, filled with compromises she never expected to make. But watching Thomas's face as he showed her pictures of playgrounds near the potential new home, listening to him talk about the children's future with such hope and planning, she realized something important had shifted between them. The broken trust was slowly mending, not into what it had been before, but into something new. Something built on shared purpose rather than romance. 2 weeks later, as they told the children about their upcoming adventure in terms simple enough for toddlers to understand, Lily looked between her parents with her serious eyes and said one of her few clear words. Together? Thomas glanced at Olivia, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. Yes, Thomas told Lily, picking her up. We're going together. All of us. It wasn't the happily ever after from a fairy tale. Olivia wasn't sure if she and Thomas would ever fully heal the wounds of the past, if friendship was the most they could hope for, or if something more might eventually grow in the space between them. But watching her 4 beautiful children, miracles she never expected, playing between the 2 parents who had found a way forward despite everything, Olivia knew one thing for certain. This was their story now, still being written one day at a time.